We're going to just take a trip down memory lane from when you were little kids all the way to today.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's funny.
So who was it? Somebody asked me, Rob Connor. I did Rob Connor. Remember, we were talking about S. Bryan,
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the stuff that they're doing.
Nice.
He wanted questions beforehand.
That was a good idea. I don't know why we didn't think about that.
I said, I'm not giving you questions beforehand. I got you questions to ask.
Yeah,
That was
that's
good
right.
if I give them to you beforehand.
What's that comedian that does Behind the Two Ferns? I don't know. That's no, don't watch that. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Is he making that up?
The Two Ferns guy. Who's that? That comedian? No, don't look it up. It's
She's
awful.
going to Google it now. All right. So
Okay.
we're going to get started. That Two Ferns thing is going to stick in my head. Well, thanks for coming over. It was a long way, right? Where did you come over?
Yeah, we had all of, for me, about a 200-meter walk here, so.
Well, Sarah came from farther, right?
Yeah,
I had to go to the library before I came.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Well, I guess finals are over now, right? So
Yeah.
Grades just got turned
It's
in.
pretty quiet.
did they? I wish mine were turned in. I got to get those done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's the part of the job. The grade thing is I don't like grading, and I don't really like assigning grades.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right. The teaching part of it's a lot of fun. Being in the classroom can be a lot of fun. Although I've gotten to the point where I'm not really big on having to be somewhere at a certain time all the time for a semester,
Yeah.
right? Because I got a lot of other things going on. So
Yeah.
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 But thanks for coming over. So we're gonna, so as I was saying, we're gonna take a walk down memory lane and get to the workforce development part of it.
Okay.
So first of all, I'm gonna ask you just to tell us a little bit about, where you're from. We're talking about you. I knew that you grew up in Iowa, right? You were born
Yep.
and raised in Iowa.
Yep, born and raised in Iowa. My father was a veterinarian in a small town. And so
So did you go to Iowa State as
he
well?
did. He's a Cyclone. My whole family went to Iowa State. I am the only one that ventured off to Purdue to do my undergraduate degree, and I am the black sheep of the family. In that deal.
They don't really talk to you much. Huh?
Well, my dad still says he would have been like Parents of the Year if, he could have gotten all three sons to go to Iowa State, but I decided to head out. So, it was good.
Was it?
Purdue's been good for me. Yeah.
So I know that Sarah's more like me, right? We're kind of local. We kind of like grew up here. And in fact, it's really odd. People, when you work at a university as a faculty member and they find out that's where you're from, people say, that's really odd to be a faculty member at a university where you grew up in that area.
I think you're one of the few people I know who's in the same situation.
Well, you're probably one of the very few people that I know that are in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious. I think the two of you met at Texas A&M?
No, we actually met here at Purdue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was doing my master's degree and she was doing her undergraduate degree. So, and then she headed to Texas A&M and I followed her. Glad I got that on tape.
You were smart. Well, that just goes to
got
show.
that down like a story.
It just goes to show how smart you are.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I've heard some of those stories about that time from John Haberman, right? He
Oh, I bet you have.
Yes,
Oh, my goodness.
yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
are the reason John Haberman came to Purdue, I think.
You were the one that's talking you into it?
Yeah, I believe
Well,
does
he came
credit
up for
that.
our wedding.
And then he was like, hey, this is all right. I
Yes.
could come back.
It must have not been in the wintertime, was it?
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
he was
Yeah.
not.
yeah.
So I'm just curious. So you're from Iowa and you're from Indiana.
Yeah.
And so obviously you've lived in Indiana for years and you spent a lot of time in Iowa,
Yeah.
right? Going home to see family
yeah.
and things. I'm curious. I've always wondered, Iowa just kind of like Indiana transposed slightly north and west, or Indiana's just kind of like Iowa transposed slightly south and east, and because it sounds a lot like your childhood was a lot like mine.
Yeah, I think, especially when you get into the farming community that I grew
rural
up
areas.
with, and you get into a farming community here, it's very, they're much more close-knit groups, centered around the cities and the smaller towns. And I see just a lot of the, people are very helpful, they're very caring. It's just, there's a tremendous number of similarities between the
I
two.
still live in that farming community I grew up in. I think I told you I haven't gotten very far in life. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I never thought them much different. I've not spent a lot of time in Iowa other than driving through it. We lived out west for a few years, and we would drive that I-80 route.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Iowa wasn't bad. Nebraska's the one that takes forever to get through.
Yeah.
Nebraska gets long.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
does.
My father's relatives were in Omaha and Denver, and so we had to take those roads across. And it was the thing about you get in Nebraska, it's just desolate. I mean, there's a little bit of farming, but it's very different. It's very much more spread out.
Well, the interesting thing I've always thought about Nebraska, if there is such a thing, and look, we're not here to bash on Nebraska, but Nebraska is the state that transitions between the Midwest and the western U.S., right? Mm-hmm. About the last 1/3 of Nebraska, when you get to it, the way it looks changes. It's more arid. It looks much more western as you get on to the western part of it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of fun. I'm just curious, what brought you to Purdue as an undergraduate when Ames was only 50 miles away?
Well, yeah, the whole plan was to go to Ames. Everything was picked out for me, even where I was going to live and all of that. And my senior year, I was a runner, and I was doing very well running.
Well, that explains a lot of things in your family.
Yeah. So when I finished up my high school year, I started getting some people asking me about running at different schools. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, now keep in mind, you can't imagine this in this day and age where you have to apply a year in advance and all these things, but the application used to be just a single piece of paper, and you write a little paragraph at the bottom in pencil about why you want to come to whatever university. And so I picked out some of the good engineering schools, and one of them was Purdue. Purdue had been doing very well in basketball, so it had some name recognition, right? And so,
we always do fairly well.
Yeah, and like a lot of people always say, it's got kind of an Ivy League vibe when you get out of if you don't know really much about Purdue, because you think, oh, that's some private school, fancy school out east for us, right? And so the track coach called me in the summer and said, yeah, we'd love to have you on the team. And so I made about summer, they got me into a really nice dorm. They got me into Tarkington, and I decided to make a switch over the summer and head to Purdue.
So did you run for 4 years?
I ran for about 2 years. I co-opted, and that really started goofing up both my training schedule and there's some eligibility things that were always an issue with that. But the big thing is I just couldn't compete at the Big Ten level. I gave it my best. I probably should have switched events. I was a sprinter. They kept trying to move me to a quarter miler or a half miler, and I just really wasn't. That was a long way around for me. So. Yeah, but no, it was a lot of fun. My freshman year I came here, Rob Woodson and Chris Dishman, which are both kind of famous football players, were in my freshman class.
Really?
Yeah. So it was quite an adventure.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
Was it the first time you were really away from home?
Yes, for that long.
Growing up in small places like we did, Purdue was a culture shock.
Yeah.
Right. There were 121 people in my high school class.
Yeah.
I came to Purdue, there were 1,000 people in calculus class.
Yeah, I had 52 in my graduating class, so yeah.
Right, and you come here and you start taking, you went through the same first engineering year that I did, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I couldn't even recognize, if I saw the calculus professor on campus, I wouldn't know who it was. I never got that close.
Yeah.
Right, you're in this auditorium.
Yeah, it was different. And it was still at the time, too, that, a lot of people struggled getting through engineering. It was kind of that look to your left, look to your right thing.
Might have been designed that way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but there was a lot of support at Purdue. A lot of people, especially those freshman, sophomore years, where you're really going through some of the hard classes. People really kind of work together to help everybody learn. So.
Really?
I hope that still goes along. I hope that's still out there. I'm not quite sure if it still is or not. But
I'm not sure. My children are all grown. I would say that my children's generation, at least at the high school age, were, I don't want to say, What's coming to mind is better people. They treated one another better, I think, than we did, right? We had, when I was in high school, hazing and that sort of thing, bullying was a...
Part of the culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that had mostly gone away by the time my children were in school. And I think that's probably true of the students that we get at Purdue today. They probably have had that same experience. Maybe they are better people than we were, I don't know.
Yeah.
So you never know about those sorts of things. So you guys both got graduate degrees at Texas A&M then?
So yeah, I did my undergraduate here in mechanical, and then I did my master's in civil engineering here at Purdue.
Well, I didn't know that you'd done mechanical.
Yeah. My senior year, I did a lot of work with the hydraulics group. I really, I took some of the ocean engineering courses that Bill Wood was teaching, and
Speaking of good athletes, he was a swimmer, right?
Yeah,
yes, he was.
I think he was an old Masters, wasn't
He
he?
was, yeah.
He
He
was.
used to swim in all the National Masters tournament. Great guy. Lost him way too early. But yeah, and I went to work for Eli Lilly for a couple of years, and then came back to do my master's. So
You didn't go straight through either, though, did you?
No, I got my bachelor's at Purdue, then I went to Texas A&M and got my master's, and then I worked for a little bit, and then I got my PhD. We were back here at that time, so I got my PhD here.
Yeah, that's even more rare.
Yeah.
To teach at a university where you got your PhD.
Yes, that is.
So you're an
So-
even rarer person than I am.
yeah,
I have a bachelor and a master's from Purdue
yeah.
and a PhD from Auburn.
Ah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you were.
Yeah, back then their football team was really good. The first year I was at Auburn, I think they just come out of that year where they were the national radio champions because they were undefeated that year. They beat
Oh,
everybody,
wow.
but they were on probation and couldn't play in
Oh, that's
whatever bowl game,
interesting.
and so they claimed to be national radio champions. They weren't allowed on TV.
Good for them.
That
That's
was back in the
great.
day where you
That's a
couldn't
different-
legally play the athletes, but they were still doing that, I think, in the,
Some places.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, so one team gets really good, and then they get turned in by their rival, and then their
Sure.
rival gets really good, and then you turn them in, and that's kind of the way
Kind
it
of
worked.
it's like pass the baton.
Now it's just a free for all.
Yes, now there doesn't seem to be any handbrake or anything. Is there?
Actually, I saw you can now, high school students can get NIL money. So this
Really?
is a new framework, yeah. In some states, it depends what state you live in. So,
Well, that might have made a difference to me. That had to be better than putting up hay all the time. So what year do you remember what year did you come back to West Lafayette?
2001.
What brought you back here?
It was me. It was interesting. I was working for a company, really loved the company. Doing a lot of work with power plants. Worked there for about 8-9 years, and designing, building big systems. A lot around on the hydraulics, but our company had changed, and I was just like, I need to kind of look at some different opportunities, and it just came up that they were looking for a director of internships for the construction engineering and management program. And Sarah had been in that program
Yeah.
some and said, "Oh, Bryan, you would love that job. That would be." And I came here. I didn't think I had a shot at getting it, and met with Dan Halpin. And lo and behold, he offered me the job, and it truly was. It was a wonderful job. The construction engineering students and the faculty over there, I really enjoyed that, and worked with some of civil in that time as well.
Right.
But then I transitioned. Since I was doing some research and I was doing some teaching, everybody's like, "Bryan, you should really look at going down the faculty road." So I actually was here for about 6 years before I started into my faculty line.
Yeah, I remember that. I was here. I came in 2000.
Yeah.
So, right, you're not a PhD to a faculty person or to a faculty job kind of person, right? You've done a lot of other things. I'm always curious when you talk to people with PhDs. How did you end up at the university doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's.
It was certainly a circuitous road for me, right? I tell I tell people My parents were really pretty supportive, you know, when I went to college, because we were the first generation, you know, my siblings and I, to go to college in the family, and we went to college. And then I graduated, and then they thought, well, what are you doing? You're still in school, kind of a thing. Then I think my parents got to the point where they thought, well, the kid's never getting out of school.
Yeah.
But I did my PhD. I was working full time at the
Yeah.
time. I worked for the university when I was at Auburn.
Yeah.
Worked for
Were you
the
doing kind of
centers.
engineering type stuff, or was it?
Yeah, so I worked for the National Center for Asphalt Technology
Okay,
while
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
at Auburn, which is where it was located.
So that practical experience. is helpful.
Yeah, I'd worked too. I'd worked a job in Indianapolis with a private company for a few years before that. So
I think both of our practical experiences have helped us with both our teaching and research piece.
yeah, you think that's true, Sarah? You think
Yeah, I
that's
do
been-
actually. No, it is. I do. I think it, and it's funny because I don't think either one of us could have charted the path that we took. You know, it's funny. I don't think you have ever had a construction class,
No.
whereas I was in the program that he was a professor. You know, but I've never taught in that area. So it is funny how things move around like that.
So I'd be correct saying that you're really in transportation, right? That's what.
yeah,
that's
I'm
what
in.
you-
Yeah,
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 that's what-
that's fair.
So you
I'm in our construction program.
Which he's worked a lot in, but his education is not so much in construction.
education was more along the water line.
Yeah, well, so there was the general mechanical
the
engineering
mechanical
curriculum.
engineering,
Yeah, and then the master's programs was hydraulics, and the civil engineering was hydraulics and piping and that sort of thing. So, and that's what I end up teaching a lot for. I teach our industrial class where we.
Yeah, you're in
It's all
construction.
pipe. It's
You're
all about
construction now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his PE is in civil engineering because I
Yeah.
think he figured, you know, I took my test, I passed. He was like, oh, well, I could do that then.
Well, if
So I
it,
taught him.
it
I
was
taught
awesome.
him all that stuff. I'm all like, okay, this is what you need to know.
well, it kind of depends on when you took the exam, right? I mean, when I took the exam, it was back in the day where it was 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon. You brought whatever books you wanted.
Yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
had too. That's
And
what I had.
Today,
anyway.
I think it's all closed book and it's all
I
on a
think
computer,
so.
I think.
Yeah, I remember I had two milk
Yes.
cartons.
Yeah, like
of
the big
books.
milk carton
Yeah,
things, right?
Yeah, I had all my books stuffed in there, and you're right. You sat there, and to this day, I mean, it was years ago, and I still remember I couldn't find a friction coefficient for grassy loam, the specific one that they wanted for a stream bed, and I was so upset because I had all the premier hydraulics books, you know, with me.
I actually did an open channel design problem on
Yeah,
the PE
yeah.
exam,
I
which
did.
I'd never done other than.
Oh yeah, I did a pavement design because I'm like, I can do the layers. It's just calculate, you know. So.
Well, there you go.
It was more
That's transportation.
yeah, but it was interesting how you strategize the studying.
Well, everyone says, well, there's always a vertical curve
Oh,
on
sure.
the exam, or at least back then, right? So
Yeah.
you could do a vertical curve problem. There might be a horizontal curve. Maybe you could do that.
Yeah.
And I'm really kind of a materials person. There's not much material stuff on the exam. I was lucky enough that there was I think there was a concrete problem on the exam. Yeah. But I remember doing that, you know, the vertical curve, and I did an open channel design problem, and I remember doing I did a reinforced concrete wall problem, right? That was half or a third underwater basically, and the rest was above water.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
You know what? I'm so
good
glad
memory.
I never had to take. Well,
All I can remember is grassy loam out of that.
we all have our own memories of that exam, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
That was awful. Yeah. So, but you're in construction, right? Now, and you're teaching in the aviation program,
Yeah,
right?
actually, it was fun though when I went over there because my first aviation event, I go to one of our conferences and I'm like, hey, it's all my asphalt guys, it's my pavement guys, it's all my local people. So
Right.
it was interesting. It's the same people. It's just we kind of do it all, you know. So that was kind of fun.
So, what kind of classes do you teach?
I teach airport management. I teach research methods. I've taught statistics. I've taught business process improvement. So
Wow.
yeah, it's kind of fun stuff actually.
You know, prepping for classes is the worst part, right?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
trying to prep something you never taught before.
Oh
And
yeah.
So you say you teach mostly like the industrial?
I have taught, just through my career, and a lot of these were similar, but I counted up 19 different course numbers over 20 years, and I love it. I'd do it again. It is. I help with a lot of new courses, but a lot of them are similar. I do a lot of mechanical courses. I do the industrial courses, which tie into that. We started doing some design courses, which I'm not an architect, but there's some things that I enjoy about architecture, so I do some of those. And, yeah.
That's what I started to be when I was in college. I thought I was going to be an architect.
Yeah, I thought I could be an architect too.
When my wife
Yeah.
married me, I thought she thought she was marrying somebody who was going to be an architect.
Yeah.
It didn't take me very long to realize I have the mind of an engineer, not of a person who looks at a canvas and can put a beautiful picture of something on it, right? I mean, I have a son who's very artistic, but it's not me, and I realized I'm not going to be.
You're a European architect. They're much more technical. That was something that was interesting for us.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's much more of a technical degree there. So that was kind of an interesting thing to realize.
Their architects do the majority of their structural work in all their building
Really?
systems. Yeah.
Because I remember when I first was in college, I just happened to, I was at some event and got to talking to a guy who was an architect. He was, retired by then, but he would say that, from a U.S. context, that architects and engineers, the civil engineers who do the technical design part of it, right, to make sure the building doesn't fall down, don't necessarily get along.
I think the architects and the constructors working together and the engineers has always been a difficult spot. We actually have a degree program, it's called Design and Construction Integration, where a lot of constructors help manage the design process now. So they need to have some better understanding of design. And so in that program, they're essentially designed to be design phase managers to help out, bridge that gap between the architect and the constructor, so it's not constantly
I was just watching something the other day they were talking about. I can't remember what that was. They were talking about the fact that, oh, no, I know what it was. I was talking to one of the employees from the state DOT that works in construction, and they were talking about the fact that when they begin to design something, whether it's being designed in-house or by a consultant, they'll start that design and then they'll bring the construction folks in and let them look at it. Because the construction folks will say, well, that'll work, but in practice it's going to be difficult to build. But if we did this with it, we could, and then they'll take that information and then they'll go back and start doing a redesign, and they'll bring the construction guys back in before they finish things and let them look at it again, which I think is kind of what you're talking about, trying to get that feedback loop all the time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Indiana's really, they've changed some of their rules, and so you can use, some of the more different project delivery systems. If we think about, we've typically been kind of a design bid build, and you are essentially going off a low bid. Somebody's got to take the lowest bid. Well, here at Purdue, we do a lot of what's called CM as constructor, or it's more commonly known in the industry as CM at risk. And in that phase, there's still two separate contracts between the engineering architecture side and the construction side, but there is a opportunity to consult and collaborate across that, and you bring in that constructor earlier too. So it's how you hire that constructor is differently, and that gets into there's design, build, and integrated project delivery, all these different types of delivery methods. But the state has opened those up, and that might be something interesting for the locals at some time to kind of start to explore some of those different methods. I'm sure they're using them already as well too.
Well, one of the things that we run into with local agencies, a lot of them don't have the experience even to manage their, if they get like a federal aid project, they don't really have the experience to manage that very well. That's always something that we thought we needed to work on or with them to try and help that process along. NDOT just has a limited number of, NDOT will help with that, but it takes time away from, and they have, much fewer construction engineers than they used to have themselves, and so they're kind of overloaded the way it is. But a federal aid project has to be managed properly, or you can get into real snootful problems
Yes.
with it if you don't. So for a guy that never had a construction class, he talks construction pretty good, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does
Learned
pretty
a lot
well,
of
doesn't he?
Well, I spent actually quite a bit of time on the construction site when I was doing the power jobs.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did a couple of nuclear power jobs where it was. Now they were retrofits at the time. I'm not that old. We were building the original ones, but I learned quite a bit about how the system works.
So I'm going to ask Sarah this because I'm just curious. That is, I don't remember what your dissertation was about.
Yeah, well, that's a relief.
I guess the question, so we talk about the fact that, Bryan was really kind of a mechanical engineer and into water and somehow ended up in construction.
Yeah.
And I mean, even in aviation where you are now, aviation is transportation.
It is, yeah.
But
they like to think they're their own special.
Their own special branch of aviation.
Yes, there is that.
But, when you were doing your PhD, your master's, you probably kind of specialized in something. What would you say your specialty was as a transportation
Well, actually,
engineer?
my master's degree, I did railroad and roadway grade crossing safety.
Oh, okay.
And then for my PhD, I did pedestrian vehicle interaction safety. So
So you're kind of a safety
kind of intermodal
engineer.
safety, yeah, in both cases. Yeah, so the only kind of transportation I have not done is ports. So that's, because otherwise I've, hit a little bit of everything.
So, I've spent my career pretty much in roads.
Yeah.
And so railroads kind of fascinate me.
They are fascinating.
I love to take the train.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just hard to do that in the U.S.
Yeah.
But like when you're in Europe, right? The train's great there.
It is.
And, we complain that we don't have that high-speed train network, but then, the U.S., the lower 48 are pretty big compared to what most people think conventionally of Europe and that train system. They don't understand how much bigger we are than.
And we like to live in houses too, so
Yeah.
that makes a little bit of a
the
difference.
concentration is
We don't
is
want to
very
live in
different.
an apartment building with people right above us and below us and next to us.
Yeah.
So-
We do
highways.
kind of like to live separately.
Yeah, we're a little bit more of a spread out kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you don't, but if you have a lot of time and a lot of money and want to burn through it, taking the train with a sleeper car or something from here to Denver or even
Yeah.
farther west would be very nice. I prefer the train because, I don't like being stuffed in an airplane in that canister with all those other
Yeah.
people. I don't like airports. Not because, it's not, a lot of people say, I don't like to fly because they don't like to be up in the air. That's not me. I don't like to fly because, I don't like people.
Yeah.
I don't want people around me kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't like it. I thought when we started flying during COVID, that was great.
That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was
That was
nobody on the
crazy.
plane. There's nobody in the
We did
airport.
too.
Right.
It was crazy. It
If
was
it hadn't been for that
absolutely
dumb mask
crazy.
they made me wear, it'd have been even better.
Yeah.
We flew to California to see our daughter and her family
Oh, wow.
during that time. And I just remember landing and there's no one in the airport. There's no one on the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Florida and it was great because there was no COVID there. So it was like, oh, good, we're so glad that's behind
We
us.
always joke.
It was just like a different
That's kind
world.
of Florida was a different place during that time.
So, but so you're still working in transportation, but you don't really do safety stuff so much anymore.
Well, some airfield safety things, yeah. And, there's so much, I think there is so much commonality in terms of just planning operations. There's people who are in one mode or the other tend not to think that way, but I guess I tend to see the commonalities versus maybe the differences.
We should
Workforce issues in all sectors, right?
We should actually get you to come over to Civil and teach the other half of airport design. I just
Oh,
just
yeah.
finished airport design.
Oh,
but
funny you should say that because some of my students are like, oh, well, I see there's a class in airport design and civil. And I'm like, you are welcome to teach that. I know Dr. Haddock does an amazing job. It's mostly about pavements. And then they just kind of look at me like, well, cross that off.
so I only
No offense, but pavements wasn't really
but
what
I'm
they
only,
were thinking.
so I'm teaching basically the airfield design, right? It's from
Right.
the terminal out.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have, because there's another course on the books, right? Which
Oh,
is
yeah.
basically from into the terminal and the
Right.
terminal part of it, right? How big of
Yes.
parking lots do I need? You know, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who teaches planning over there now? Anybody?
You know, I think maybe Nadia maybe has taken
okay.
some of that.
No,
I
that's
don't know
great.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
what I did some work in planning with consultants. So that was. I was
She
kinda
actually
liked
did quite a
planning.
bit with airports when she was in industry.
Really?
Technology integration more. You know, that was.
You guys really have very, your careers have been varied.
Yes, very much so.
You know, I
Yeah.
think at the university, students look at us and think that we've only ever really done one thing, right? They
Yes,
don't really
uh-huh.
understand. Or maybe we look at one another as colleagues and think, oh, well, Bryan's always been in construction.
Yeah.
Or Sarah's always done this. And it's not like that at all. We all had different routes to where we got. My bachelor's degree is in physics, by the way.
Oh, I
wow.
didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Cool.
So when did you pick up the engineering?
So I finished my bachelor's degree and realized nobody hires people with
Yeah.
bachelor's degree in physics. You really need a PhD. And I wasn't doing a PhD. I just, by then, I tell people, by then, let's see, when I graduated, I had one child already. And I just needed a job. And so I did. I spent a year in graduate school in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences, because I found somebody there that would give me an assistantship. I had a
good,
research
yeah.
assistantship.
Sure.
I did that for a year, and they used to be in what's Schliemann Hall now. I don't remember. It was the old
Okay.
Geosciences building, right? That's where we
interesting.
were when I was in.
Yeah.
And while I was in graduate schools, when we moved into the new part of civil engineering building, you know,
Yeah.
they're up on the 4th floor.
Yeah.
And so we moved into the offices over there, and I thought, well, I could be a civil engineer.
Yeah.
It's a weird story, because I went down the
That's great.
hallway. I talked to two professors, both of whom you'll know. One was Kumar Sinha,
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
and the other was Tom White.
Oh, nice.
sure.
And they were like, "Yeah, you can do this." Yeah,
Well, you know
that's
what?
Great.
They both did make me an offer.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I chose pavements. And of course, Professor Sinha's still here. I mean, he
Yeah.
just retired in December, but he's still
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And, you know, Tom went on to be the head at Mississippi State.
Right.
And Tom told me one time, he said, you know, because I got to admit, my grades, undergraduate grades, weren't that great. They were marginal to get into graduate school. And Tom said, you know, the deciding factor, he said, for me was the fact that you'd grown up on a farm, which told
yeah.
me that you had encountered problems and had to figure things out on your own, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, actually, construction engineering and management, that's what they used to say too. They knew if you grew up on a farm, you weren't afraid to do work, you weren't afraid. So, of course, that's harder now because not many people grow up on a farm.
well, but if you talk about heavy equipment operators on a construction site,
Oh, yeah.
what better prep for that
Yeah.
than the heavy equipment that I operated growing up?
Actually, our son got a job at Caterpillar, and one of the questions on the the screening was, "Have you ever driven a truck?" And yeah, he'd driven a truck. So it's interesting the variations and
Yeah.
you know.
I'm not sure that students, meaning either, you know, late high school students, those kids that, you know, that 17 to 20 where they're high school or early college, that they realize that things that you do growing up can, right, what we would think of as throwaway jobs can actually turn out to,
Yeah, make a difference
Yeah.
somewhere.
right.
Yeah.
It helps to have had a job when you go and try to get a job.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Both our kids did some service types work, and
Not happily, but
not happily.
There you go. That's very teenager.
Yeah, but
Yes, I'm begrudgingly going to do service for you.
they're still resentful of something.
our daughter kept wanting to take off that. Oh, she's like, oh, I don't need to put on there that I worked at McDonald's. I was like, no. I mean, if I'm interviewing, so I see somebody that's working at
Yeah.
McDonald's, I'm going to be,
Well, I think kids think, well, that's just a throwaway thing.
Yeah,
But look,
yeah.
it may not be the best place that you ever worked. I mean, I have a wife who had worked at McDonald's at some point, and it doesn't sound like a very fun job, right? I grew up
Yeah.
outdoors,
Yeah.
and being stuck inside doing that
Yeah.
wouldn't be that much fun. But then I would think she probably thinks that putting up hay 8 hours a day.
But
for-
you got to get up. You got to be there. You got to there's
Teamwork, learn the
learn
procedures.
procedures. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a safety piece. It's all
right.
these things stick with you a long time.
Yeah, I think they need to understand that, right? Is that any job looks good on your resume. If you did a good job,
Yeah,
if you got fired in 2 days,
Yeah.
you might want to leave that one off.
Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit about that age group, and you know, we look back. We probably all remember when we were 17 or 18, right?
Yeah.
Selective things.
Well, you two are obviously younger than I am. I always tell my kids, "Oh man, I miss the '70s. It's a great time."
Yeah, I'm in that era.
Well, you're not well, you might have been born in the '70s, but you weren't raised in the '70s, right?
But I was raised in the '70s.
I remember some things about the 70s. I remember Purdue, and you know, we used to have homecoming. They would do like they would do sculptures. They would do big paper mache sculptures. All the fraternities and sororities would, and so you would drive around and look at the big.
Yeah.
So if I were to name names like John Garrett or Bruce Parkinson, would you remember those guys?
No.
They would have
keep
played
going.
They would have played on early '70s Purdue basketball teams.
Later 70s,
Later
I would
70s.
remember.
Yeah, I didn't think you were that old.
Joe Barry Carroll.
She's younger.
Yeah,
Joe
Joe
Barry
Barry Carroll
Carroll.
was 1980 in the Final Four. Right?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I remember. And I used to go to the basketball games when I was a kid, though. I used to go to Indianapolis. I used to go to the Purdue basketball games. It wasn't as hard to get tickets then because Purdue was like, I don't know, what, 25,000 students maybe.
Really? I didn't know it was ever, well, obviously
I don't
it was
know.
smaller
Actually,
than
I
at
made
some
that number
point.
up, but it was smaller than
Oh,
it
well,
is
you
now.
do teach statistics then, don't you? What's the old adage? You know, 80% of statistics are all made up.
That's right.
Well, you're well suited for your job, aren't you?
There you go.
So let's talk a little bit about your research, because I want to talk about the workforce development report that you did.
Oh, yeah.
At this point, we should probably say at some point that Sarah actually worked for LTAP during
Yeah.
your career, right?
I loved working for LTAP.
How long was that?
Oh, boy, I
Well,
don't know.
LTAP liked having you work there.
Yeah, it was great. I loved the
It was sad when you left.
It was
but-
very sad.
Well, we were
Yeah.
understanding that.
Yeah. So, I don't know, a few years. But I did a lot of things at LTAP because I worked part-time there, and then I did what is now Laura Slusher's job, it seems like.
Yeah,
I did
the
that
safety
for a
thing.
while, and then I did some of the did what was used to be Jen's job with the research
Yes.
and innovation, although we didn't call it that much, and I probably didn't do as much innovation as she did. But, you know, yeah, so that was great. I really liked LTAP. And I saw it through a couple different locations, too. Back you were over in
Yeah, that other building.
that other building. We were all in the basement.
Oh.
And then now, I mean, you guys have really nice facilities. You got the
yeah.
simulators.
Yeah.
Boy,
We
it's
do.
nice.
Yeah.
It has changed over the years. You know, I just said, it wasn't that long ago, somebody asked me a question, and I said, well, you know what? Sarah wrote a report on gravel roads. Just look that up.
I
And then-
know.
And then they said to me, do you know how old that report is?
But come on, it's a gravel road.
Well, that's
so
true.
I'm not sure the technology has changed
Yeah,
a
that's
whole
probably
lot.
true.
Maybe there's some tweaks, but
And I will attest, when Sarah still to this day will talk about how much she enjoyed working with the locals.
I do. I do
just,
like
and
the
it's
folks
great when
who
she
were-
gets, you know, we'll go back for an LTAP thing, and she'll connect up with some of them that are
Yeah.
still around there, and it's just great people.
And I
Just
still
great.
work with airport locals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same, you know, small airports are kind of like the,
Right.
there's so many analogies. And ours, again, same consultant, same city mayors and county commissioners that are providing decision making. So,
So you guys did this report for us in 2023,
yeah,
which is when it came out. That's what it says on the
Mm-hmm,
front.
yeah,
You think things have changed since then?
yeah.
Gotten worse?
Different challenges in workforce, I think, right? When we wrote that report, a real workforce shortage. Agencies were really looking for people. I don't have my finger on the pulse of that. I think looking for qualified people is still a challenge, and recruitment and retention is still a challenge. So,
Well, one of the big things I think in the report was the report, because you did a survey, a salary survey sort of
Yeah.
a thing, right? Was that the local agencies were paying some rate that was less in pretty
Yeah.
much every job than you
Right.
could make like with a state DOT or
very
something
much
like
so.
that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's gotten any better.
No, I think that is a challenge. I did a similar, this was a very comprehensive, very data-driven. We did another report for the airport sector, actually, that was nationwide, and we did a broad survey and then some case studies. But it would, you know, same issues in that sector as well, some of the same challenges. So it is challenges. You guys both talked about living in a small town, and then you say, wow, think about how that street department, how that county, how they're able to staff their positions, how they're able, since they are a small agency, how to have the expertise. You talked about the challenge with federal aid programs, but also what happens when you've got an operator who's out for a family issue or a health issue. Suddenly, boy, if it's winter and they're also one of your drivers or
Right.
mechanics, it's incredibly disabling. So having a strategic approach is, you know.
You know, my parents' generation, working for a local agency, like where I grew up, mostly for the county kind of a thing, or even the state DOT was kind of a, I don't know, it was a badge of honor, but it was certainly something that they did maybe on their way to, you know, starting up their own farming career or doing whatever they were doing. And I think we've probably lost some of that now I mean, Bryan grew
Yeah,
up in
they've
a
always
small,
been good jobs. Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about, you know, your town having been 1,500 people when you were there, and now it's down to maybe half that or
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
Farms have consolidated over the years, right?
Yeah.
You used to, if you were a big farmer, if you had, you know, X amount of acres, and now
Right.
you're a big farmer if you have 10X of
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right? Kind of a thing.
We see the farmsteads gone every time
Yes,
we go
and
back.
because
Yeah.
there are fewer farmers, there tend to be fewer farm kids, I guess I would say, who were kind of natural fits for maybe some of those types of construction jobs that
Yeah.
you're talking about in workforce development. Because they have that, you know, like you were saying, was it Cal, that he'd driven a truck, right?
Yeah.
And when he filled out, you know, because he'd filled out a form and had that on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would expect, this is coming from the construction side, because, you know, as part of that report, and that's one of the reasons you know, I was involved with this is because you know, the construction side and these locals tend to pull, you know, try to get people back and forth. And right now in Indiana, we are just seeing an explosion for craft workers.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you go through with Lilly, Meta, the Ohio Intel job, I mean, you can look at all of these major projects. They're all pulling from all over the country to bring workers into Indiana. They're giving very high premiums. It's the salaries for some of these craft workers are very good, which is wonderful. It's wonderful for our economy. It's wonderful, you know, for these families. But it's got to be hard for locals to keep up with that.
It is. So, you know, we have a CDL program
Yeah,
to try
that's
and help
great.
with locals with CDL, but
Yeah.
they'll tell you that if they hire somebody and they get them through their CDL, they're
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing about the CDL, some places there are even challenges with people don't have their driver's license as much as they used to. I mean, you never think about that if you're from a rural area, but I know plenty of people who have teenagers and they're just like, they're not interested in learning how to drive. It's just hard to
You
imagine
gotta be
the
kidding me.
cultural changes.
yeah.
I started
So-
driving in a hayfield at like 6.
Yeah.
I know,
yeah.
but it is that in some places that's another challenge.
Well, I suppose that could be. I think, you know, looking at the workforce development report, and I know it's, you know, a couple years old now, but I think there is a real shortage of construction workers. Not only, you know, just general construction, but especially, you know, skilled tradesmen kind of a thing.
And we've been seeing. I remember when I started in you know, in this group in 2001, the people could see this coming.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you can see it in
this
the
coming.
ages.
Look,
Demographics.
Yes, it wasn't
Yeah.
like this came out in 2023 and
Right.
I thought, oh, what a revelation.
Imagine where did that come, yeah.
Exactly. This is this peak, and we are getting a lot more younger people interested in the trades. When they can make, you know, a lot of times significantly more money than you could with a college degree.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
oh my
starting to
goodness.
pull people into these, you know, welding, pipe fitting, all these
Yeah, those are great.
electricians, and so we're kind of generating a new era of craft. And again, that gets into the CDLs, the drivers, the laborers, all of that.
You know, I've known some, again, my children are all grown and married, but have known, kids that went to school with them that didn't go to the university. They went to the union, right? And
Yeah.
they got paid from day one and learned a trade, and they didn't have any college debt when they got done, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
There are other ways to go about that.
Yeah.
Right? Not trying to be Mike Rowe over here or anything, but
No, it was interesting. We had our advisory board a few months ago, and one of the members back from industry said, well, are you concerned that people are basically going to decide that a college degree isn't necessary and isn't worth the investment, and just kind of to what you're saying to that, because there is discussion about the value, and when people do have crushing debt, that is that's a fair question. But
it is a
I
fair
actually asked him and everybody else, I said, well, that's a great question. I'd love to hear, do you all still require a college degree?
Yeah.
And they all did require a college degree, and some of them required a master's or a PhD, so in that case. But I do think it's important to think about what kind of value we provide for that. So.
right. But the construction industry though is hard pressed.
Oh, yeah.
I spent a lot of time around, companies, construction companies, linear construction companies, and basically they have to try and recruit kids out of high school, and then it takes them, however many years to train them to do whatever they need them to do correctly. As opposed to just having some system that's turning out.
Yeah, the craft training is much more complex than it ever has been, with just the tools and the technology and things like that. That's why we always tell our students that are graduating, in more of a management path, a project engineer, or superintendent route now, that they need to learn from the craft. They're there to help them to learn and make sure they respect their trades, because they've got great education. It's just a little different than the college side. Yeah.
Well, just because you didn't learn that in the classroom doesn't mean it's not valuable information to know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
You can learn I suppose you can learn a lot of information from a book on welding, but until you've held a welding machine and tried to weld something,
Yeah.
there's a lot of difference.
Yeah, it's funny because I teach a lot about weld quality and weld procedures, and then I take them all to a welding booth and give them a stick welder, and they all get to try it, and they realize that it's a lot trickier than what they realize.
Well, I have just welded a couple times in my life, just playing to see what it was like, and it's much harder than you'd think it would be.
Yeah.
And I remember being at a trade show somewhere and trying one of the simulations where you put the goggles on and look, it was harder, I think, than really trying to weld in person.
Yeah.
It was much different.
Yeah.
So, to learn those trades is pretty tough. I was looking at the report again this morning just to refamiliarize myself, and I see one of the problems that the report mentions, and I've heard a lot of other places, is that the construction workforce is aging out, which is also true of the heavy equipment operators. It's true of heavy truck operators, and they're all aging out. And unless we're going to turn everything into self-driving, which I don't see happening anytime soon, we're going to have to find people to do those jobs. Where are all those people going to come from?
Well, not just we don't have to find them, but transferring all that institutional knowledge is incredible. When you've got somebody who's worked at a highway department or street department for 30 plus years, they know so much that's written down nowhere. Yeah. So that's an incredible issue. Well, and it's funny too, you talked about the self-driving cars. They theoretically have been working on the self-driving snowplows. Yeah. They're really good at it.
Can they take mailboxes out?
As long as it's not snowing. Once you add snow, it gets way too tricky. So that's so if you look back 5 years ago, there's all these headlines about, Yeti's working on a team with someone, and it's this close, but we're still this close.
Yeah, Rich always tells me he has that dream of the quiet construction site where all the equipment is electric and
oh wow,
right, a lot of it just operates on its own. Yeah. Some of that technology's out there now, not widespread, but like in mining operations, you see ukes and stuff, the big trucks, they'll be, self-operating kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just, getting back to our young people and making sure they understand the different opportunities. And there's a lot of things going on in Indiana right now. A lot of the construction folks have really tried to start up programs and things. And I thought when we were doing that report, that was one of the things. And, there's probably some connections that the locals could make with the construction community on, helping that training and getting those people up to speed.
Yeah, we've done some things with Rob, with S-Bright, Center for Aging Infrastructure, some of the things that they do. They teach some locals. We've talked at LTAP about trying to do more to try and get some of that stuff.
So there's, the AGC of Indiana does quite a bit. That's that's both union and merit, and then ABC is much more merit shop. So different organizations are working on that.
So when the two of you stop now and look back over life, I'll ask Sarah first and see what she says.
That doesn't seem very fair, but okay. No, I'm just kidding.
What would Sarah tell 18-year-old Sarah
Oh,
today?
boy. That's a tough one.
Well,
18-year-old Sarah probably wouldn't listen, so it doesn't matter what I would tell her.
You sound like someone who's raised teenagers. Because you're just talking to 18-year-olds today, right? If
Yeah.
an 18-year-old comes across the podcast, and
Yeah.
what is it that they want to take away?
I think a lot of I think when you're 18, you expect you can plan this and do this and this will be your outcome, right? I think about like our engineering homework where you'd be like, this is given, this is assumed, okay, here's our beautiful solution.
Yes.
And life is never so neat and clean, right?
Well, for someone who didn't want to go first, Sarah, that's a really good answer.
No, I don't think I could beat that. So
Because that's exactly what
is-
you learn in life.
Yeah. It's not a straight path, and there's hiccups along the way throughout life. And you look for opportunities, and sometimes you think you took some good ones or not so good ones, and but you learn from all of it and you move on. So
Pretty much the way it works, isn't it?
yeah. I'll have to say I've been so happy being here at Purdue. It's been a great institution for me. I've worked in a number of different locations, as you have too as well.
Yeah, I do like Purdue.
And they've been very good to us, and it's a great place to work and great.
So you don't say what a great place Purdue is, though, when you're at home in Ames, right?
Yeah, no, I don't. I
With the family.
the Cyclones out there. But we did have. We were just recently home, and we were reminded multiple times how Iowa State came here and beat Purdue in basketball.
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe people like play by play.
Really?
Actually, and then they would say, would you like to see the video I took?
You need to see the
When
video.
you have so little to root for, you got to hold on to whatever you can get.
It was pretty dramatic.
It was very dramatic, yeah.
That was pretty funny.
So,
People just shouldn't treat you like that. Yeah, well, so some people are just like that.
yeah.
Yeah, so when you talk about, I think back what it was like to be 17 and 18 and not have any clue what I wanted to do in life. And being so worried about it. When I was in college, I remember having friends or classmates who, I was going to be a mechanical engineer and do this and this and this. They had it all figured out, and I didn't have anything figured out. And now, looking back, I realized that none of us had anything figured out. They just thought they had something figured out.
Yeah, that's what I think that's the biggest challenge is when you think you do and then suddenly there's a curveball.
You've probably noticed this with students before, and I saw it a lot in the CEM program where students would come in here and they knew exactly what they wanted to do. And it was their life dream. They had gone through the steps, and then all of a sudden, they get here, and it's like it was either not what I expected or something didn't go quite right, and they really struggled. Those are students you really have to work with to help get back on a path, to whatever they'd like to do. Whereas the ones that are a little bit more mobile say, okay, I'm going to try this and do this. They can tend to go through the system, I think, a little easier without,
Well, if something knocks you down, maybe it's a little easier to get back up and go on.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to, if you get that bit of perturbation off of the path, your chosen path, and you think, oh, well, now what?
Yeah.
I never thought about anything else.
Right. I came here to be an astronaut, and wait a second. What if I'm not going to do that?
That was
right?
me. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah, everyone wants to be an astronaut.
I never wanted to be.
Really?
Sarah always says that.
I'd still be an astronaut. If they came to me and said, look, we need an old guy like you to go into space,
See, here,
I'd say, where do I sign?
Yeah.
you know who the first people they sent up in the aviation things? Prisoners, chickens. It's like now instead of sending up a prisoner, you'll pay millions of dollars to go up. What an incredible marketing thing! I'm not quite sure how that changed, but I always
suppose
think
that's true. I never thought of that.
Yeah, so
I'd still go. I'd go to live on the moon if they ask.
Yeah.
I'd love to do construction on the moon.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be fun to see. It's probably one of those things. It would be fun to go, but then okay, I'm done. Now let's go back. Kind of like this, going on vacation.
Go on vacation. Me, I'd do that over and over. Well, how much fun, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming over today.
We appreciate you.
I know
having
that
us
it
on.
was
yeah, thank you so much.
I know
It's
that
been
it
fun
was
to
a
see you.
long. Took you a long time
Long
to get
track.
here.
Did a long track.
Right. It's a long drive for the two of you, but thanks for coming over.
Yeah.
Hope your semester's over and you have a nice summer.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate everything LTAP does, and I think great organization helping out people. So thank you.
We do like to help people, and we like you guys doing work for us, right? Because you do good work. That's a really good report. We get a lot of compliments for that report.
Oh, good.
Well, you guys made it a lot prettier too, I have to say.
Well, we do have people that do that, so you don't have to worry about it, right? Well, thanks. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
good to be here.
Appreciate it.